Marites Vitug, and this is Worldview. We take a look at global, regional, and national affairs in conversations with officials, newsmakers, and analysts. Joining us is Japan's ambassador to the Philippines, Endo Kazuya. Welcome to the show, Ambassador. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you very much for inviting me today.
And we will be talking about the revitalized, shall I say, or deepening security relations between Japan and the Philippines. Okay. So I think maybe we can start with the big picture. What do you think are the factors that are responsible for this deepening of security ties between our countries?
Thank you very much for starting with the big pictures. Japan and the Philippines are maritime nations, and we share the importance of the rules-based maritime order here. And we are the strategic partners sharing fundamental values and principles. So we are natural, important partners with each other. And both countries share serious concerns about the situations in the East China Sea and the South China Sea. And we have enhanced the security cooperation in various ways and in light of the such increasingly challenging regional security environment. And if we look at the recent examples of the high-level contacts between the two countries. Last year, President Marcos made a visit to Japan twice, in February and in December. And our Prime Minister Kishida, also made a visit to the Philippines last November. And when our Prime Minister made an official announcement to start the negotiations for the reciprocal access agreement. And those very strong momentum of the high-level contacts between the two countries have at least helped us to strengthen our ties in the security and defense field as well.
I think the reciprocal access agreement is historic. What will be the impact of this RAA, which was signed recently? What was the impact on South China Sea or in the region or on stability of our region?
This reciprocal access agreement is to facilitate the implementation of cooperative activities between the two forces, Japan's self-defense forces and the armed forces of the Philippines, such as joint exercises and disaster relief activities. And it is also intended to improve the enhancement, improve the interoperability of the two forces through identifying the procedures for the mutual visits of the two forces, and through clarifying the status of the forces when they are visiting another country's territory. So I think it will be expected to further promote the security and defense cooperations between the two countries. And we hope that it will firmly support the peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region.
What was interesting about this RAA, or Reciprocal Access Agreement, is that Manila and Tokyo negotiated for only 7 months, while Japan and Australia negotiated for 7 years. Am I correct? Or how come it was such 8 years? I'm sorry, with Australia. What made things easier between Manila and Tokyo for this RAA?
I think there are a couple of elements. First, I think it is really the strong commitment of the two governments and the strong commitments and the leadership of the two leaders in our respective governments that enabled the early conclusion of the two of this agreement. through, as I mentioned, in addition to the mutual visits, the two leaders also participated in the trilateral summit meetings last April this year. And the defense ministers of Japan and the Philippines also participated in the quadrilateral defense ministers meeting in May this year. So various high-level contacts have shown the strong commitments of the two countries' governments to accelerate the negotiation process that led to the early conclusion of the RAA. And for Japan, this is the fourth RAA. The US, of course, as the ally of
Yes.
Japan, and the Australia, UK, and the first Asian country.
The first Asian country.
With the Philippines. So there are lots of issues involved, but at the same time, I think the two countries have exerted our utmost efforts to accelerate the process of the negotiations. And as you mentioned, when the 2+2 meetings were held in early July, the agreement was signed in the presence of President Marcos.
Yes. Ambassador, you mentioned the Philippines is the first Asian country which finalized or signed an RAA with Japan. Is Japan planning to negotiate other RAAs with other Asian or maybe Southeast Asian countries?
At this moment, we are negotiating the RAA with France, but we haven't made any decisions related to other negotiations with any other countries at this moment. As I mentioned, Japan and the Philippines have shared various elements, principles, values, and issues in front of us. And that's quite natural for us to have the first RAA with Asian countries, with the Philippines.
It's quite interesting. And also recently, our navies, Philippines and Japan, held their first joint exercise, which we call Maritime Cooperative Activity. And it took place in the West Philippine Sea. Why is it important for the two countries like this to conduct exercises? And maybe the follow-up is, will there be similar exercises with the Coast Guards of Japan and the Philippines?
Again, as I mentioned, I think the Philippines, Japan are long-term democracies, maritime nations, and the Philippines is also located at the strategic point on the sea lanes of the Indo-Pacific region. And we also share common challenges, concerns in terms of stable use of maritime domain. And it is important for us to work with the Philippines, and it is also important for realizing a free and open Indo-Pacific from our perspective. And in terms of cooperations among maritime law enforcement agencies, Japan has provided capacity building assistance to the Philippine Coast Guard, including bilateral trainings and exercises, and also some vessels to the Philippine Coast Guard. In addition to those bilateral cooperations, Coast Guards of Japan, the Philippines, and the United States has conducted the first joint exercise in June 2023, last year. So the trilateral joint exercises among the Coast Guards of the three countries have already been going on. And on August 7th this year, the Japan Coast Guard held an online meeting with the Philippine Coast Guard to assist in response to the oil spill incident on the vicinity of the Manila Bay. And just 1 week later, on August 15th, again, Japan Coast Guard held an online meeting together with the Philippine Coast Guard and the U.S. Coast Guard, and also the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration regarding the oil spill response assistance. So in various fields, it's not only in the Navy, Naval Self-Defense Forces, but also among the law enforcement agencies at various levels, bilateral, trilateral, and in some cases, quadrilateral cooperations are going on.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think we've not seen this happening before. So this is all historic in a sense.
Yeah.
So do you see the JSDF or Japan Self-Defense Force, will they eventually join exercises like Balikatan here in the Philippines and with the US and in Australia called Alon, which means wave in our language?
Actually, Japan's self-defense forces have long participated in either the Philippine-US or Philippine-US-Australia exercises. Japan self-defense forces officials have participated in the Balikatan as observers already. And once Japan-Philippines RAA is ratified, JSDF will be able to participate into high-end parts of those joint exercises. Actually, currently, Japan Self-Defense Forces is able to join those exercises, which take place in the territory of the Philippines only in the portion of the HADR, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief purpose. So through RAA, it is expected that the JSDF will be able to conduct wider range of activities, and it will deepen our bilateral and multilateral defense cooperations with the Philippines, together with like-minded partners in the region.
So hopefully, Ambassador, maybe in the next year's Balikatan, Japan and will be full-fledged participants next year if the Philippines also ratifies, if and when the Philippines ratifies the RAA. So are you optimistic that Japan will eventually ratify the RAA? I mean, your parliament rather would approve the RAA.
Yeah, we also have to ask for the approval of our Diet Parliament, and I can't say for sure about the timing of the approval of the agreement, but as we are the parliamentary cabinet system, I hope that we can also ask for the approval of the agreement at the earliest possible timing.
Ambassador, let's switch to the official security assistance, which is relatively new. Japan already gave the Philippines, I think, $4 million worth of coastal surveillance radars for the Navy. So would you have anything else lined up for the Philippines? And maybe you can explain, how does this process work? Does Manila request from Tokyo? Or do we have a mechanism wherein we consult each other? So about what should be given or covered by the OSA?
The Japanese government has established this new scheme called the Official Security Assistance, starting from the fiscal year 2023, starting from last year. And Japan has decided to provide coastal surveillance radar system, as you just mentioned, to the Philippines as the first recipient of the OSA for the fiscal year 2023. Now we are in the fiscal year 24, and we continue to be considering the Philippines as a recipient for this year and have communicated with relevant agencies of the Philippines. And in our system, through the consultations with the relevant government authorities in the Philippines, we decide what kind of goods, equipments will be provided based on the needs of the Filipino side. And it's through the close consultations with the officials in the Philippine government that is deciding what and when and how it will be provided.
So the OSA can cover the armed forces of the Philippines as well as the Coast Guard.
We have been supporting Coast Guard, law enforcement agencies through the official development assistance.
Okay.
So official security assistance has been established in order to cover some of the areas or some of the counterparts that cannot be covered, that could not be covered through the official development assistance. So I think it's mainly the military or the armed forces of the Philippines that is going to receive the support from the Japanese government through OSA.
Ambassador, maybe going back to the big picture, we've read reports about Japan setting up a joint command that will oversee the three branches of your self-defense force: air, ground, and maritime. This is new, right? And then
new.
At the same time, the U.S. is also converting the U.S. forces, Japan, into a joint force headquarters, which will now report to the Indo-Pacific Commander. And so where does the Philippines fit into this, and what benefit will the Philippines gain, if any?
The Japanese government and the U.S. government is also making our own efforts to reinforce effectiveness of joint operational postures. And Japan Self-Defense Force Joint Operations Command will be established during this fiscal year 2024 as a permanent joint headquarters that can unify the command of the ground self-defense forces, maritime self-defense forces, and air self-defense forces, as you mentioned. And again, as you mentioned, the U.S. has also announced its intention to reconstitute the U.S. forces in Japan as a joint force command under the Indo-Pacific Command in order to promote interoperability in peacetime, also in emergency situations, and to deepen cooperation to joint operations between the U.S. and Japan. And the details will be discussed in the joint Japan-U.S. working group after internal U.S. deliberations. So nothing specific has been decided yet at this moment. In any way, deepening cooperations with the Philippines and other like-minded countries in a wide range of fields based on the U.S.-Japan alliance is really essential for maintaining regional peace and prosperity, we believe. So in that sense, the enhancement of the interoperability of Japan and the U.S. will also be beneficial to the wider region.
Because because the Philippines is now part of a trilateral cooperation agreement with Japan and the US. So as you said, it will benefit not just the three countries, but the entire region.
Yeah.
Okay. Ambassador, I'm sure you're aware of this, the recent sources of tension in the West Philippine Sea. There has been some peace in Second Thomas Shoal or Ayungin Shoal because of a provisional arrangement between the Philippines and China. But recently, we've seen tension in near Escoda Shoal, and then also in Scarborough Shoal, wherein China Air Force plane threw flares at the path of a Philippine Air Force plane which was on a routine supply mission. So what do you make of these recent sources of tension in the West Philippine Sea?
First of all, as a representative of the Japanese government, I should be refraining from assessing the provisional arrangement between the third parties, but at the same time, we hope to see the communication between China and the Philippines will ease the tensions in the South China Sea and lead to the peace and stability of the region. At the same time, Japan strongly believes that the issue concerning the South China Sea is directly related to the peace and stability of the region and is a legitimate concern of the international community. Of course, I can't be in the position to explain or mention specifically about the background of what's going on in the sea, but Japan opposes any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force, as well as any actions that increase tensions in the South China Sea. As we reiterated serious concern over repeated actions and dangerous actions which obstruct freedom of navigation. And so we've also been making our statements in various ways related to our basic positions over the current situation in the South China Sea.
Maybe the Philippines can learn some lessons from Japan. How does Japan navigate relations between, U.S., China? Because you're also a major power and the third largest economy in the world. How do you navigate relations between the superpowers? And, what can we learn from your experience?
I think, first of all, between Japan and the Philippines, we are in the position to learn mutually from each other. So we are also learning a lot from the Philippines, and I hope that our experiences or some of the lessons learned can be of some humble help to our friends and colleagues in the Philippines. But I also tend to believe that both Japan and the Philippines are long-term democracies, are treaty allies of the United States in this region, where no multilateral security organizations like NATO exist. So the alliance with the United States has worked as a stabilizer in the region and prevented potential conflicts in the region. At the same time, Japan and the Philippines also hold strong bonds with China historically and currently. China is among our main economic partners. As you see, China is a primary trading partner both for Japan and the Philippines. And our common task is how to forge a more stable, prosperous structure for our own sake And I have to admit that this is not an easy task to tackle, but this is exactly why we need to work, the Philippines and Japan, to work closely to explore effective ways to address and manage the issues in front of us.
So maybe on the final question, Ambassador, since you've talked about the trilateral relations and we also talked about U.S. and China and Japan, the foreign ministers from Quad recently met in Tokyo and they gave a long statement. But one of the issues, and I would like to read, that the Quad foreign ministers affirm their strong opposition to any unilateral actions that seek to change the status quo by force or coercion. And this is referring to South China Sea and the East China Sea. What can the Philippines expect from the Quad? Because as you mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of tension in the West Philippine Sea with China becoming more aggressive, and now also in the airspace of the Philippines. So what can we expect from Quad?
The so-called Quad among Japan, US, Australia, and India is the forum for broad discussions to promote practical cooperations in the region in various fields towards realizing free and open Indo-Pacific. And at the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting in July in Tokyo, the four ministers, in addition to what you have just mentioned, they agreed to promote cooperations in the field of cybersecurity, including the support for capacity building in the Philippines in order to respond to recent demand in the region due to scientific and technological development. And I think this type of concrete cooperation is very important, and this is an important outcome for the Philippines as well. And as you mentioned, it is also important for the four foreign ministers stressing the importance of upholding the international law, including the UNCLOS, for a rules-based order, including in the East China Sea and South China Sea. And they're reaffirming strong oppositions to any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or coercion. And at the same time, the Quad cooperation has been called force for good. And it is not targeted to any specific country.
Like China.
If I respond in an official way.
Yes, thank you so much, Ambassador, for making time for this interview. And thank you to our audience. That's it for today's show. Thank you again. And this has been Worldview with Marites Vitug. Till next time.